Hello everybody, it's Nick McDonald speaking. Welcome to this week's ICE commentary for the Russell 2000 and US equity markets. Looking here at the Russell 2000 on a daily chart. And once again, we've pulled back right into this predefined area. So when we came all the way back here, we defined this is a potential point for a pullback. We pulled back in, we bounced off. Then we had another pullback in, and we bounced off. What you'll notice in here, with a theme of news, particularly over the last few weeks here, this rally in stocks is good news out of Europe. This fall is bad news out of Europe. Good news out of Europe, bad news out of Europe, good news out of Europe. So we're really still dictated by that move. But all in all, if we just zoom out and put things into some perspective, we've certainly had worse times in terms of choppiness. It was just a little bit more kind of we get these moves for 3, 4, 5 days in each direction, as compared to now, which is anywhere from kind of 1 to 3 days, up and down, up and down. So it's very choppy from one day to the next, which makes swing trading conditions still that bit more difficult. However, looking at this chart, there's no denying it that we've now moved out of the downtrend we were in back through here. So from kind of July through to October, we were certainly downtrending. We had a sideways period in there. We're now undoubtedly back into uptrend, and the market is particularly bullish now, having come back and made this higher low. What we have to do now, in fact, is break this high here. So if we can break up through that high, and let's get very precise, the exact high there is 755.30. So literally, if we can break up through that high, we've now put in another short-term reversal pattern. So call it a double bottom if you want to, but all, double tops, double bottoms, head and shoulders, all any of those things are changes of trend. And what we had here was a potential change of trend where we made a lower high than the previous low. But in fact, then now that we've made a higher low than this previous low here, so we pulled back in, but we failed to break to lower lows. We've continued to make higher lows, and now if we can just push up through that high, we've confirmed higher low followed by higher high, back into uptrend. Just above that, we do have this big level here around 765. And this is going to be key, but the market looks bullish, and it looks and it looks like it should get through there. If we get through there, I think it's worth starting to talk about where the next levels are going to be. If we get through there, we're looking up here around about just above 800, so we could call 800 the big level. It actually looks more, to be more precise, like slightly above it, but we'll have a zone there between 800 and up to around about 805, so starting about 800. But if we can get through there, then that's a pretty good run, and I believe we will get through there. I said that actually back at this stage. I thought we'd get through. We found some resistance on the way. Now I still think we'll get through, and then it's really a case of making an assault on these highs on the Russell, and that's, I don't think that's likely to happen in the next fortnight, but it's likely to happen, potentially this year, and certainly the market is looking more bullish, but still going to be dictated on what happens with Europe. So if really bad news comes out of Europe, then anything could happen here. Stocks could fall, but news aside, this looks extremely bullish. One of the more bullish scenarios I've seen on stocks for many months, and particularly, really happy with that higher low we just put in there as described. If we just come and have a look at this on higher time frames, we can see on the weekly chart as well, we can just see those levels I've had marked in and how well price has been responding to them. But what I really like these last couple of weeks, as much as we've been sideways, look at how we've been rejecting these the lows. We come down, we get still finished with a bullish candle. Same thing happened last week. We tried to go lower, the bears tried to win, but by the end of the week the market was still pushed higher. The bulls came back into control. You can see here the level here at 765. If we can break through that, then really the next major level is up around these highs. So there's nothing much stopping price getting there. Coming to the monthly chart, and this is where I really like this across all the index markets. We'll look at the Dow and the S&P in a minute, but I really love this. Such a bullish monthly candle last month, and how we're now so close to breaking up through those highs. And if we can break that key level that we were looking at, that resistance level of 765, well, that also is going to mean we're going to be breaking up through this last month's candle, which is around 770. So if we can get up through those levels, that's looking very, very good indeed, and only 800 in the way of all-time highs, so looking very strong. Let's come and have a look at this on the Dow, because it's very similar. I particularly want to look at the same pattern here of having made a higher low and now very close to making that higher high and breaking on up, and also the monthly candle that much closer. Literally we're so close to breaking 12,300, which is the high of last month's candle. Then we're looking very good with only 13,000 in that case standing in the way of 14,000, and that's some pretty big moves. If we can get up and break 14, we're looking very good, and I believe that we'll do that sometime in the next 2, 3, 4 months. That's my longer term outlook, that we will get up and test those highs, news aside. Let's look at the S&P, very similar to the Dow and to the Russell. We've got this bullish higher low, looking for it to break up through that high. We do still have 1300 in the way here, but the monthly candle again is very close to breaking. If we can get through there, we've also got 1400 in the way, so a little bit more resistance in the way perhaps on the S&P, but again I think we could be getting up and testing those highs certainly in the longer term. Lastly, just coming to the Nasdaq, and it's one of the key reasons I think the other markets will break highs is because the Nasdaq is right there right now testing it once again. Certainly there's a lot of resistance here for it to get through, but if it does, and all of the major markets are led and influenced by each other, and the Nasdaq, while not as closely correlated to the other three right now, certainly it's doing some different things right now, and actually it's been quite range bound lately. It's still the strongest of the markets in terms of it's the closest to breaking out to new highs for this year. And if we can get up through those highs, it will be a very bullish sign for the Russell, the Dow, and the S&P. It's likely to be pulling the Russell 2000 up with it. So coming back to the Russell here, certainly very bullish indeed, but we just have to look at this especially in perspective of the last few weeks and the news out of Europe. Just remember, good news, bad news, good news, bad news, good news. If things got a lot worse over there, we don't know if they will or not, but if they did, the markets are likely to go down, and what I'm seeing technically is unlikely to hold true. However, I've always been a firm believer that the technicals show what is likely to happen in the charts even before the news comes out in the press. I do think that the situation in Europe will be resolved, and I'm judging that purely on what I'm seeing in the charts, that people who know more about the markets than me, there's a lot of people out there with billions and billions who are trading and making buying decisions to buy stocks. Those people with their hundreds of analysts, of thousands of analysts and research departments, the big hedge fund managers, the guys that have been trading for decades and decades, the smart money, we could call it, they are clearly bullish on stocks. Why? Because we're seeing stocks looking bullish. We're seeing it in the charts. I personally don't follow all the news terribly closely, but I look at the charts for signs of what is going to happen in the news, and I do think here that without any major surprise news coming out and affecting it, or some other new situation coming into the mix, I do think that the news out of Europe will start to resolve itself slightly. It might not go away completely, but it's starting to look more and more bullish on stocks, which is likely to be bearish for the US dollar. We'll talk about that shortly in the dollar index video. And we just need to keep very close eye on it and be aware that in the shorter term it's likely to be volatile until we see a resolution. Now, as a trader, I don't really mind whether the market goes up or down. Of course, it's better for the economy and better for stockholders if markets go up. So most people, and myself included, do prefer a bull market to a bear market. If things did get worse, however, purely from a trading perspective, it should not be something we're afraid of, because from a trading perspective, it's just as good for us to be trading a down market as an up market, sometimes even better. So be prepared to trade both directions is probably my key advice, and be prepared for a down market on the back of bad news, especially anything really bad going back to where things are kind of 2008 type of bad. But we can see that happening very quickly in the markets. We had that little bit of fear back here as it was potentially 2008 type bad, but since then, over a number of months now, it hasn't been that bad. The news hasn't been disastrous like it was back then, and a lot of it will come down to media reporting as well. But right now, recapping, stocks do look bullish. I do think they'll be going up over the coming months. I do think news will start to get better. If I'm wrong on that, though, and if news turns bad and markets turn nasty, then I am also very prepared to be shorting, and just as happy to be shorting and just as comfortable doing so as I am going long. But right now, undoubtedly, the charts look bullish. They look like they're heading up. That's the direction I think we're going this week, next week, and even the week after. Happy trading all. Speak to you soon.